Welcome to episode 9, Quarantine 2020. It's actually day 11 of the quarantine. I mean, for when my quarantine started. And when I started this, I wanted to do an episode every day. I thought there'd be a ton of material, but I'm not very creative, so I lost some ideas. So I decided, I'm going to take Saturday and Sunday off, get started again Monday, try to come back with something really good. Now, I came up with a plan. Actually, Krista helped me figure this one out a little bit. And she found this quiz of some kind where it talks about different dumb things you've done in your life. So I'm going to title this one Baron's Hot Mess. And that would probably just be in reference to my life. There's some pretty risque ones in there. So being that I'm not totally ready to lose my job and the respect of my children and my mother, who might watch this as well, I'm probably going to leave those ones out. I'm going to just slide through the list. I think there's 48 questions. And as I was going through the list, I realized I had a ton of stories related to all the things in here. So I'm just going to go through them one by one and tell the stories that relate to them. And I think I think people have probably a pretty low opinion of me already. Wait until you hear some of these stories. It's really unbelievable, the hot mess I've put myself into multiple times. So, here we go. Number 1. Have you ever lost your keys or locked your keys in your car? Everyone in my family or people who spent time with me for any period of time knows I haven't just done this once or twice. I've done it hundreds of times. It's embarrassing how often I lock my keys in my car. I have a couple funny stories related to that, but the first one that jumps out is back when I was in university, so we're talking about 1998, maybe 1999, around that time frame. Of course, there was no cell phones, and I went to Blockbuster to get a movie or a video game, I can't remember. And I pulled into the Blockbuster. I did something and opened the back door of my car, and then I realized as I was closing the back door that I'd already locked the front door, and as I reached for the door to stop it from closing, it closed, and I realized that my car keys were in the car. So I got angry like I usually did, and once I finished my temper tantrum, I went into the Blockbuster, called CAA. They said they would be whatever amount of time, 30 minutes, 40 minutes, and I finished getting my movies, went back out, waited, the CA guy showed up. He unlocked my car for me. We laugh. I tell him that I'm stupid. Self-deprecating humor is my defense for everything. So we laugh or whatever. He's a nice guy. He opens up my car. I jump in. He drives away. I can't remember the specifics of it now, but I locked my keys in the car again before I drove away from that Blockbuster. I remember slamming the door shut, and I went, "Are you kidding?" And I look in there, and the key's still in the ignition. I ran across the parking lot and caught the guy. And I remember he was pulling out of the park. He was stopped waiting to pull out of the parking lot, and I ran up and I just banged on the side of his tow truck. And he stops and rolls down the window, and he goes, "Yeah, what?" And I said, "Man, I'm sorry. I locked my keys in my car again." And he looks at me and goes, "You fucking kidding me?" Yeah. All sources of us getting along were gone. This guy had no respect for me anymore. You locked your keys in your car twice in the same parking lot. So thank God he came back and unlocked it. I still had to pay for both times though. It was awful. I mean, that's just the tip of the iceberg on how many times I've locked my keys in my car. So, all right, next one. You've locked yourself out of your home. Yes, I've locked myself out of my home. About I can't remember how long it was. My oldest daughter was maybe 3 or 4 years old. And we went out somewhere. It was summertime, so it was just me with the girls alone. Krista was at work, and we went out somewhere. We came back, and I've actually only done this once. Well, I locked myself out of a hotel room once, but in my home, I've only done that one time. And I remember sending, I had a lease with me at the time, so she was really little, so I actually went over to my neighbor's place. They wanted to call a locksmith, and I didn't want to pay for a locksmith, so I just left a lease at the neighbor's place, and I took Olivia, because she was little, back to our house, and I noticed that our kitchen window was pried open a little bit. So I just grabbed the window, yanked it back, and stripped it, broke it completely. The window would never open again, but I actually pushed Olivia up, and she was pretty nervous. Dad, I don't want to do this. And I said, no, you're fine. Just step in there. It's there. And I kind of held her until she fell down, and she got in and let us into the house. So I had to screw that window shut again. It was never the same after that. So yes, I've locked my keys inside my house. You've lost your keys and had to get them replaced. Yep, absolutely. Again, back in university, I lived in College West, and I was swinging my keys on my finger, waiting for the elevator to go up to my room, and it was a freak occurrence. These things, they hardly ever happen to anyone else. They're just me. I was swinging the keychain on my finger, and it slipped off my finger, and it went sliding towards the elevator. And I remember thinking in my head, oh, it's fine. It'll just hit the elevator door, and then I'll pick my keys up. If you can believe it, as my keys, it was like slow motion, as my keys were sliding towards the door, the elevator door opens up, it falls in between the elevator and the floor, and all the way down the elevator shaft, and yeah, I had to have those replaced, so I doubt anybody's done that before. Next one. You've walked into a room and immediately forgotten why you went in there in the first place. I don't know who hasn't done this. I'm hoping everybody does it. I'm hoping everybody does it the same amount as me. I think my 5 concussions from football scares me sometimes. I do it fairly often, walking into a room. Well, I don't know why I came in here. So then I just go in the fridge. It solves all my problems. Next one. You spent a long time looking for something that was already in your hand. Okay, this is probably one of my favorite stories. I did my internship out in Lumsden with a co-op teacher who was in his 10th year of teaching, and it ended up being his last year of teaching. He went on to become a city police officer. And after about a week of the two of us spending any time together, everybody realized that we were the two most absent-minded teachers, and how we ended up together as a partnership was amazing. And I remember walking into the school one time, and he just called me Burger Baron. So we were walking in, and he's carrying a bunch of stuff in his hands. I know it wasn't marking because he never took any home, but he was carrying something in his hands, and he says, Burger, get your keys out and unlock the door. And I'm looking, I didn't have anything in my hands, and I'm looking around for my keys. I'm checking my pockets, and I was probably wearing cargo pants because it was still the 90s. It was just out of the 90s. And I'm looking for my keys in all my pockets, and I'm going, I can't find my keys. I don't know where they are. And I'm looking, I'm like, okay, I'll have to go to the office and get a spare set. And then he says, oh, Burger, never mind. My keys are right here in my hand. And then I looked down at my hand, and I went, oh, shit, my keys are in my hand, too. That was the beginning of a wonderful relationship. It worked out so well. There's a better story about the two of us and how dumb we were. I'm hoping it comes up here at some point. If it doesn't, I'll find a way to fit it in. Okay. You've burnt something while cooking. Probably, I don't know, French fries, those 5-minute French fries that I cook for 20 minutes. I've probably burnt those ones before. Nothing that like jumps out at me that I absolutely ruined. Maybe Krista can comment and let everybody know where it's actually happened. You started a kitchen fire. I don't think I've ever started a kitchen fire. I know Krista has. She lit her own. Growing up on the farm, they would warm themselves up by opening the oven and turning it on in the middle of the winter. And she got too close one time, and it started her hoodie on fire. But I'm not supposed to be telling stories about other people. This is my hot mess, not Krista's. So you've forgotten to close your tab at a bar or a restaurant. Okay, this one was really funny because it actually happened. It's happened to me 2 times in my life where I've just walked out and forgotten to pay. And I don't know why it happened both times. And the most messed up part about these stories is I ended up And the same guy ended up having to pay my tab both times, and I hardly spent any time with that guy. It was very funny. His name was Scott McCauley. He was running Football Sask at the time, and I can't remember if I was coaching Senior Bowl, I was helping with an ID camp or something like that, and all the coaches had gone out for drinks beforehand, and I just got up the first time and walked out and didn't pay my bill, and then didn't realize it until probably 10 or 11 o'clock at night. And the next morning I went up to him and said, "Hey man, I'm sorry, I forgot to pay for my bills." He's like, "Yeah, I paid for you owe me this much money," so I paid him back. And then you'd think it happened like the next day, but it was like 3 years later at some other football event. I had one beer and I left, and it just so happened that Scott McCauley was there again, and he ended up having to pay for me. So it's super weird that that's happened. Only 2 times in my life, though. Next one. You've forgotten your debit card or credit card at a bar or restaurant. Maybe one time at the teacher hockey tournament in Saskatoon, I had put my credit card down because I didn't have cash, and I think I left, and my credit card was still there, and I happened to come back and pick it up. Nothing crazy for that one. You've lost your debit card and credit card and had to replace them. One time, again when I was in university, I was driving my 84 Plymouth Reliant, and I lost my whole wallet, and there was actually, I'd been paid for something working for somebody, and I had $200 cash in there, and I lost my wallet. Looked for it everywhere, and like my wife would say, like my everywhere. Couldn't find it. I had to replace my debit card. I didn't have a credit card, so I didn't have to replace that, but I had to get my ID replaced, social insurance number, all that stuff. I had to get it replaced. 3 months later, I dropped something outside my car, and as I was bending over to pick it up, I got a closer view between the seat and the door, and there was my wallet there. $200 was still in it. Had all this extra ID again now. So, I don't know if there's any other better story related to that one. You've accidentally driven over a curb while driving. I don't know for sure. I think the best story for this one was when I was in grade 11, maybe grade 10. I think I got my license in grade 10. When I was in grade 10, my dad taught me how to drive my truck, and he said, in the wintertime, you scrape off the entire windshield. You don't just do a little part so you can see you scrape off the entire windshield. And like most kids, I went, yeah, I'll always make sure I scrape off the entire windshield. And I think I got up in the morning to go to football practice, and the window was all frosted over, and I was in a hurry, and I didn't want to scrape it. So I think I just put my hand on the window and just melted enough so that I could see through the spot my hand melted. And I turned a corner, and I didn't even know where the corner was because I couldn't see anything. And I drove off the road and ran over a sign. And in typical terrified fashion, I just drove away and didn't say anything. But I think somebody ended up catching me because my dad found out. Hot mess. Have you ever gotten a speeding ticket? Actually, I've never been given a speeding ticket from a police officer. I've been caught twice. Allegedly caught twice by the cameras. There's no way that you can guarantee that it was me driving, though. It could have been Krista. So that's what I'm sticking with. I've never been given a speeding ticket. All right, I'm going to have to cut it short there. I don't want to make you sit for a half an hour and listen to all of these incredibly hilarious stories. So I'm going to cut it off there. Part 1 of Baron's Hot Mess. I'm going to drop right away tonight, and then I'll do part 2 tomorrow with a couple pretty infamous stories about my life and why it's such a hot mess. Thanks for joining me, and I'll see you tomorrow in Quarantine 2020, Episode 10.